viewers, and welcome to what will hopefully be an educational video for you. If you've clicked on this video, you have come across a wire tool, or maybe you've just seen one and you're curious about what it is and what it does, and maybe just have some general questions about electricity in general in 7 Days to Die. Keep in mind, as this video is being filmed in Alpha 20, if you're playing a later version of the game, some of these things may be a little bit different, and one of the differences in specific that I am aware of for Alpha 21, I will go over when we get to that point, but I'm going to stop talking and we're going to get right to it. So, like I said, you've either looted a wire tool, you bought one from a merchant, or you saw it in their inventory, or you can even craft one. Starting on day one, supposing you have the resources for doing it. I am currently holding the wire tool in my hand. It does not do anything in this game other than help you kind of manipulate the electric items that are available to you. In order to use any sort of electricity in this game, you're going to need a power source. The three power sources you have available at this time are in front of me, and I'll kind of briefly go over those. The first one we have here is a solar bank, obviously, like solar panels. If we hit E, as it says, to interact with them, it'll open up this menu in our inventory. We don't really have a whole lot of options here. In order to use a solar bank, you need these little individual solar cells that go in here. It can hold a total of 6, and these solar cells range from level 1 to 6. I just put the top quality in here to show you that even with the entire bank filled with 6 of these, it produces 180 watts of electricity. As of right now, this says 0 simply because there's nothing plugged into it. It's not powering anything. So this just kind of gives you a gauge based on your maximum, what it is that you're running. And then you have the option to turn it on once you're ready to power some things. Obviously, one of the major drawbacks to this is it only works in the daytime. So between the hours of 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 2200 hours, this thing will work. Other than that, it will not. The other thing is you cannot craft this. The only way that you can do anything solar-wise is by purchasing it from a merchant. And until you get really kind of further late into the game, you're not even going to get decent quality solar cells. So this number right here is going to be significantly lower. And a lot of people kind of don't go for the solar. It's just inefficient, much like in real life. So what's our second option here? We have a battery bank. The ways that you can get a battery bank, obviously you can loot one, you can purchase one, but you can also craft one. And there's two ways that you can do that. One is you can find the book in the world as loot that will allow you to do that. Or if you go down the intelligence tree and you spec into advanced engineering, once you get to that tier in your leveling up progression, you'll be able to unlock that. So when we take a look at this battery bank, this thing, obviously, as you would have guessed, uses batteries. This thing holds 6, just like the solar panels hold 6 cells. With 6 fully maxed out level 6 batteries, this thing gives you 300 watts. So it's already kind of leaps and bounds ahead of solar, number 1, in the ways that you acquire it, and 2, the amount of power that you can get from it. Same thing again here. It's at 0 watts because we're not currently powering anything. I did deplete this battery just a little bit so you could see that this colored bar does have some sort of indication to it. A lot of times when you're looting batteries, typically from dismantling cars or just finding them in loot, the battery level will be at different points. So that's all this level means. Once this thing is inside of this battery bank, you can actually charge it though from alternate power sources. So for example, let's say you had a solar array plus you had this thing. You can wire the solar array into the battery bank and use it to help charge up your batteries. So what's our third option for power? Well, that's a regular fuel generator. So the ways that you acquire a generator are the same as a battery bank. You can obviously loot one in the world. You can purchase it from a merchant. You can find a schematic for basics of electricity that will allow you to craft it. Or again, speccing through the advanced engineering tree, once you open that up, you'll be able to craft a generator. So when we take a look at this thing requires engines. Obviously, this holds 6 of them, just like the solar cells and the batteries. Engines you're typically going to acquire again from dismantling cars. So once you get your hands on a wrench and you just start taking them apart, you'll come across an engine. So definitely hold on to those. Once you have 6 of them in here, this thing makes up to 300 watts. However, in order to keep this thing running, you have to put gas in it. So as you can see, I have my gas can here. We currently have 0, and all we have to do is just hit refuel. And now we're up to 1,000. This thing is pretty dang efficient when it comes to gas. I very rarely have to actually fill it up. I just usually top it off just so I don't forget and get to that point where, oopsie, it's out of gas and my board base traps are down and I'm getting overrun. Again, 0 watts, we're not powering anything. The engines do not degrade over time. So again, the only real limiting factor to using this would be how much gas you can either craft, purchase, or scavenge from busted up cars. So now we have a way to create power. Now, what do we do with it? Like, how do we hook it up and what can we do? Well, we've got a couple things that we can do. So these are kind of like our power sources, and then I would sort of call these intermediaries. We have a couple options for wiring our power source to whatever it is we are trying to power. So we have something that is called just a relay. This doesn't have any kind of menu. I'm mashing E right now. Nothing's happening. All this is just a way for you to help direct the flow of electricity to whatever it is you're trying to power. Switch is just like a light switch that you would find in your house. If I hit E, it's either going to turn it on or off. Pretty simple. And then we also have an electric timer relay. When we open this up, we look at it. Basically, it's the same thing as if you were to plug a timer into the wall in your house and plug a lamp or radio into it when you're out of town. You just pick what time that you want this thing to turn on, and it'll send the power from your power source to whatever it is that you're powering during those hours. So for example, if it's during, again, the day cycles in this game are from 04 to 22. So if you want the doors to your base open at that time, and then as soon as nighttime hits, they're going to close off, or reverse that, and 2200 to 04, you want all the lights inside your base to turn on so you can see what you're doing while you're running around in there sorting your stuff and crafting and doing other things. So how do we get our power to one of these things, to whatever it is we're powering? Well, all we have to do, we'll use the battery bank for our example here, is walk up to it and we right click. And when we do that, it'll kind of do that little animation, and you can see that we've now got a wire connected to our battery bank. So we back up, and then let's say we want to plug into our switch. We just right click on the switch, and then you can see the little yellow dots are traveling in the direction that the electricity is flowing. You have to start on your power side. You cannot, for example, go from a relay to a power source. As you can see in the bottom, it says this power source cannot have a parent connection. You cannot send power into a power source. It can only take the power from that. So I messed up. I don't want this wire connected here now. All I have to do is left click, and it'll terminate the connection that I'm currently trying to run to wherever. Now we've got our current flow, and also if I switch off of my wire tool, you can see that the yellow lines disappeared. Now we just have kind of these unsightly wires running through our base. So those wires can travel through walls. We don't have to have any kind of conduit or anything. It is going to be kind of ugly. So this is what I was talking about. One of the changes that are being made in Alpha 21 is those wires are supposed to now become invisible unless you whip out your wire tool. Then they're going to pop up and kind of do this same thing. So that'll be a nice change. I know a lot of people design their bases and try and route wires to hide them in walls because it is kind of ugly once you have a whole bunch of things with lights and powered doors and board base traps and everything running everywhere. It looks like just a big spaghetti mess, and you can walk through it. It doesn't hang up on anything. If zombies walk through it, they're not going to hurt it. It's just kind of a visual representation so that you can see where your power is actually going. Now, one of the main things, like I said, that you can hook stuff up to would be lights. So let's say that we are going to now hook our battery bank to some lights inside of our base. Well, we've got it hooked up to our switch. That way we can manually control it. Again, you could use the timer relay so that the time of day. This thing, again, it just sends power. All its sole purpose is to just distribute power to wherever it's going. So we've started at our power source. We've gone to our switch. We now can right click on our switch and send it to the relay. The other benefit of using relays, or even you can do the same thing with any of these 3 items, is these can connect to 9 objects. And again, like I said, they go through walls, so I kind of built this here as a representation. So I will click here, and I've got some light bulbs. Each of these light bulbs, and it even tells you when you highlight over stuff how many watts it takes. So you can kind of do the math and figure out if you have enough power to power whatever it is you're running. So let me go ahead and finish connecting all these the same way. I'm just going to right click. All right, so we now have 9 lights hooked up. I'm going to try and hook up a 10th to this relay here. So when I click on it, Power component has maximum number of wired connections. So if you're having trouble, so now I'm going to left click to disconnect that wire because we have 9 things hooked up. So if you're having trouble, like you have way too many things hooked up, you can use multiple relays and you can connect them to each other. And then kind of usually what I will do is I will use one relay for each bank of things. So let's say I have this one relay will power all my lights. Then I'll run probably another wire to another switch or sensor. And then that's going to run to all my horde traps. And then have another relay that's going to run to all my doors or any vault hatches that I've got powered. So we have our power running to our switch, to our relay, to 9 light bulbs, but our light bulbs are not. So let's turn our switch on. Our light bulbs still aren't. Oh, we're just going to go backwards in our connection. Did the switch is on. We got everything plugged in. We have to go here. You can either hold R, and this will come up. So if we go here, just highlight over, you don't have to click. Let go again. It'll take you to that same inventory menu as if we just hit E to begin with. You can come in here again, go down to switch on off, and let go. You'll hear that electric hum when you're close to the battery bank. Kind of gives you another indication that it's on. Follow our switch. The light is green. So again, if we turn it off, that goes away. And we now have power to our 9 light bulbs. For number 10, we couldn't hook up. And like I said, wires will run through walls. If we switch, we're out of our wire tool view. You again have this kind of spaghetti mess. So we're going to turn this off. Now, wires will run through walls. However, you do not have an infinite amount of distance that you can travel connecting things with wires. So I kind of have that represented over here. So let's just say, you know, your generator's over there and you're trying to do a long run because you have a giant base and you're just trying to get everything powered. So if we switch to our wire tool and we right click, I've numbered the squares so we can travel up to 10 spaces. Once we get to space 10, you can see that the wire is connected. It's still black. When I move to the 11th space, it turns red and I can no longer connect anything from here. If I try and click on something that is within range, it will not let me do that. However, if we step just back into 10, you can reach and cheat just a little bit. You can move 5 squares away. So I've counted out again 5, and I can right click. So you can technically connect stuff 15 blocks away from your last connection. Anything further than that, you're better off just putting another relay and connecting from there. Again, a lot of people kind of route stuff behind walls and under things. Now, keep in mind that zombies can damage any one of your physical items that are put down. So if you leave this on the ground like that and a zombie comes walking by and they get stuck here and angry for whatever reason and start punching and they break this, anything that's connected down the line from here is going to be inoperable. So especially if that's your lights or traps or doors, nothing is going to work and you're going to have to reset your stuff up. So it's advised that you put any kind of stuff like this, your switches and your power sources, up and away from where they're going to have access to it. Even if you think they're not going to have access, put it up a little higher or put a hatch in front of it, build an extra wall, because the wires will, again, run through walls. You don't have anything to worry about as far as it not working. So that's just kind of the basics there as far as how to use the tool. I'm going to kind of briefly go over some of the other things that you can use the electricity for in your base. And we'll start with what I call the sensors. So we have tripwires. These things have to be used in a pair because obviously, as you can see, we now have a purple, it's kind of like just the sensor. So if you were to put this in a hallway to alert you if zombies, or depending on what kind of server you're playing on, if another player or person came through there, when they go through this, it's going to send a signal to whatever it is that you tell it to. So if somebody trips this and you have it hooked up to a siren, or this is a speaker, that will notify you, hey, somebody's coming. I need to direct my attention to that. So this thing's kind of annoying, so I'll only do it for a limited time here, but I'm going to right click on my generator bank. I'm going to right click on one of my sensors here. It really doesn't matter which one. So if I were to left click and snip that off, right click again and click that, all we have to do, again, we're just following the power, right click, right click. So then once we have that connected, we again have to follow the path here. So this is sending power to this, but what do we want this to do? So the signal from this is then going to get sent to our speaker. So once I turn my generator on, your generator does make noise. Speaker's not making any noise. However, when I walk through the sensor, it sets off the speaker. So let's turn this back off because I don't want to keep listening to that. And if we want to interact with the tripwire post, so if we look at this one, where the power is coming in, I can't do anything. It just tells me how many watts it uses. So the one that's downstream and sending said signal to whatever we're doing, if we hit E, we have a couple options here for what we want it to do. So in this case, the second I touched the wire, it did send the signal to the speaker, and it was only the duration that I was inside of the tripwire. You can put a delay on it between 1 and 5 seconds. And then power duration, you can have it go just a little bit more of a variety, so it'll go off for that long. I don't think we want the speaker going off for 30 minutes after somebody walks through it. Something that somebody might use this for is you would hook up a tripwire and then maybe put a light inside your base so that if somebody tripped it and you were out for the day looting and doing adventures and you come back and the light's on, you would then know, hey, somebody was here. What did they mess with? And that way you didn't really alert them. So I don't really know what else you would use that for. Maybe you guys have your own way to do it. But a lot of times people use something like this for traps. The other option we have for a sensor is a motion sensor. So if we open this one up, it has a camera preview here. I can't do anything with this right now because it's not powered. But the options what you have is you can have it target you, any friends or allies that you have in your world there, strangers, or zombies. So depending on, again, what you're using this for, is if you have this hooked up to a, let's say an automatic door, you would have to, let's disconnect this. So we're going to hook our generator bank up to our motion sensor. Then we're going to hook our motion sensor up to a powered vault hatch. So while I'm looking at this, you can see that these two are pretty much identical, but this one only shows how many watts it uses when I look at it, and this one gives me the option to manually open it. So keep in mind, if you use a powered door on your base, you cannot run up and open it if your power is broken. So like I said before, if a zombie comes along and breaks your generator or your relay that's hooked to this and you're scrambling trying to get in your base, you're not going to be able to manually open this without power. So just keep that in mind when you're setting your stuff up. So now we have the motion sensor here. I'm going to have it target me and allies, and then we're going to leave the door open for 3 seconds. So once I come in here and turn this on, our door's closed. But when I walk in front of this yellow cone, you see the door open. And then it stays open for the prescribed amount of time, and then it shuts. It's still watching me. You can see when you kind of get close to it, it turns and looks at you a little bit, then goes away. So again, you don't see that cone without a wire tool. So if just some stranger were to walk up to your base and they didn't see the motion sensor, they wouldn't see it looking at you. It still works. You just don't have that yellow cone to let you know where it's at. All right, let's turn that off because that's annoying. So other options for sensors you have are trigger plates, which again, same thing. You can tell it what you want it to do. Is it instant when it picks up, or up to 5 seconds? And how long do you want it to go? Same thing here. This is just a very long version of it. So if you had a really long single wide hallway and you just didn't want somebody to come run and jump over that, they're not going to be able to jump over this, no matter how, maybe if they have max parkour skill, they're not going to bypass that without setting it off and triggering whatever it is that you have concocted in your base. So again, you have different options. These are not the only ones available. These are just the variety that I picked to put down. You can have powered garage doors. So if you want to set up a, for example, a motion sensor that sees you driving up in your vehicle, it'll open the doors for you. You can drive in, but other players or zombies coming by won't trigger it. Also, same thing with doors. They look identical, but you need to make sure you pick the right one and hook it up accordingly. Otherwise, your stuff's not going to work. So I am going to do separate videos on each one of the traps, but for now I'm going to go over them just to give you a brief idea of what's available. If again, you're here seeking knowledge and you don't know what's available to even hook up to mess with power because it's kind of daunting, you have a couple options for traps. You have electric fence posts, which again, just like the tripwires, they are required to work in pairs. You would send the power to one, the signal would travel through to the other. And essentially anything that comes in contact with this wire, including yourself, when it's on and powered, if you run into it, it gives a little shock animation and you're kind of stunned. The zombies will get hit with it and they'll stand there for a minute. Usually this isn't enough to kill them on its own, but you use that to kind of slow them down so you have other things that can shoot at them, or they're in a blade trap, or you're there smacking them or shooting them yourself. The other thing that you have available is a dart trap. When you pick this thing, you can load it up with darts that you can make in the forge. It holds up to 3 stacks of 500. Lock the ammo in once it has ammo in there, and whatever sensor you have hooked up, so whether it's a motion sensor or a pressure plate or tripwire, you tell it, hey, that's where those delays come in. So when it says when it's that thing's triggered, I want it to instantly shoot, but I want it to shoot for 5 seconds or 30 seconds after, just to make sure that whatever's coming. So again, for example, let's say we put this long trigger plate in front of one of those zombies hobbling across this thing. As long as it stays on there, it's going to keep shooting. But then once it gets past that, you maybe want it to shoot for another 5 seconds or so, because there's probably going to be more zombies coming behind it. You also have some shotgun or SMG auto turrets. These are basically little sentries that once you power them, they're kind of a gun with a motion sensor built in. So they have the same targeting. So you can have it target enemies and zombies. Load it up. This thing only takes 9mm ammo. You cannot put high power or AP ammo in. It's just basic 9mm. And it takes 3 full stacks. You lock it in and you can kind of see the camera preview. If you have power running to this and it's active, you can go into this and kind of manually look, and you can even manually shoot it. But again, I'm going to save that for when I get into the video talking about turrets. The other last trap that you have access to is the blade trap. This thing does take up a lot more space. It's a 3x3 square, but once this thing is powered, it just spins, and anything that walks into it gets damaged. There is no access. I can't do anything with it. There's nothing to change. The only thing you can do is once it starts smacking stuff is to repair it. And those are kind of the traps that, again, I will have a separate video for each of them, kind of covering the traps and what they do and maybe some best use cases for them and kind of how to overlap them or use them in conjunction with each other. Keep in mind, this is not every single electric item. There are several different types of lights in the game, but they basically all do the same function. You run power to them, they turn on. Whatever manner of power you're running to them, whether it's by using a timer, a switch, or just having them all on all the time, that's up to you. I did mention the battery bank and charging up batteries. So like I said before, you can use either the generator or the solar bank to charge them. Again, most people don't go solar. It looks cool. Maybe if you just want authenticity on your base and just put some panels up there to look nice and maybe use it sparingly with whatever you can find. But more than likely, you're going to end up with one of these two options. So if I hook my generator bank up to my battery and I turn it on, if I were to sit here and just watch, because the stuff that this is hooked up to, let's turn those lights off so we're not drawing power. If we were to just sit here and I were to let the camera time lapse and watch, this purple bar on here is going to slowly fill up to full. So you can wire up even, again, your solar banks. That, plug it in, it kicks the generator off. You can only have one power object running into it at a time. That's going to be a lot less efficient than your generator bank. Something that you could do, however, is run your generator bank to a switch and then run your switch to your bank so that you can choose what times that you want that power to run there. So let's disconnect that from it. So now we've got that whole loop. So we've got it on now. Our switch is powered because of the generator, and then we are now directly feeding to the battery bank. If you were using the battery bank to power all your stuff, again, it gets a little kind of convoluted. These lights are all on still because we have them hooked up to our relay coming from our battery bank. So we could put another switch in the middle of this to turn those lights on and just have that switch available to tell this when to charge her. So we disconnect that. And again, this thing will charge your batteries. The higher quality level batteries that you get, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, the more you will get here. So as you're looting cars and let's say you only have level 1 batteries in here, you find a level 2, swap it out, go sell that, scrap it for lead, throw it in your furnace for lead, whatever you want to do with it. So this was supposed to be just a basic overview of electricity and how the wire tool works. If you guys found this video helpful, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you choose to do. If there's anything that I did not answer, you have any questions about, or something that you just want to know, please feel free to let me know, and I will get back to you and answer your question to the best of my ability. And if I don't have the answer, I'll look it up and still get you an answer. So I appreciate you watching. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch you in the next video.